Have you ever seen a neighbor lose their mind over something as harmless as a porch light? What if the HOA president turned your quiet street into her personal battlefield with midnight raids and ridiculous fines just to prove who's boss? And how delicious is it when the power-hungry Karen who slandered you finally crashes and burns in front of the entire neighborhood? Willow Creek Estates looked like the American dream on a postcard. Manicured lawns, identical beige houses, kids on bikes, the whole postcard package. But underneath the sprinklers and golden retrievers lived the real ruler, Linda Voss, our HOA president. A woman who wore pastel cardigans like armor and spoke in paragraphs about community standards while treating every neighbor like a potential criminal. She'd already spent months whispering that Ryan Harlan, the divorced guy who worked from home and kept to himself, was antisocial and dragging down property values. People started side-eyeing me at the mailbox. I ignored it. I'm patient. I grew up with bullies. I know they collapse when you stop feeding them attention. Until the night she decided my brand new motion sensor LED security light was a declaration of war. It was Saturday, just past midnight. I was halfway through a cold beer when the first slam hit my front door like a battering ram. Then another, and another. I parted the blinds and there she stood, Linda Voss in a shiny pink satin robe and fuzzy slippers. Hair in curlers. Face twisted like she'd swallowed a lemon. Her fists were hammering my door so hard the frame rattled. I cracked it open on the chain, keeping my voice low and even. The tone you use when a toddler's about to throw a tantrum. Linda, it's midnight. You realize that, right? Your porch light, she hissed, jabbing a finger toward the soft glow behind me. It's shining straight into my bedroom window like some kind of interrogation lamp. I can't sleep. I'm invoking Section 7.4 of the Covenants on exterior illumination. Turn it off, or I'll write you up every single day until you comply. She was breathing heavy, eyes wild, like I'd personally insulted her ancestors and her future grandchildren in one flick of a switch. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Linda, you've lived across from me for 6 years. The light's new? Sure, motion sensor for security after those rumors you helped spread about me being suspicious. But it's pointed down at my own porch. Maybe try blackout curtains instead of treating my house like it owes you rent. She launched into a full sermon about the fabric of our community, protecting resale values, and how people like you were eroding the soul of Willow Creek. Her voice climbed higher with every sentence until porch lights up and down the street started flicking on like curious eyes. I could have killed my light. I could have shut the door. But patience is a weapon, and I'd learned long ago that letting tyrants talk long enough usually hangs them with their own rope. So I let her rant. When she finally paused for breath, I smiled thin. If the sheriff pulls up right now, who's getting the ticket for disturbing the peace? The $12 LED bulb or the woman pounding on my door like she's repossessing my soul? Her face twitched. Out came the phone. She hit record, sweeping the camera from my calm face to the offending light like she was filming evidence for the Supreme Court. This is going on record, she declared, voice dripping fake sweetness. Board sanctions will follow. Liens if necessary. You'll regret crossing me. Ryan. Liens. She said it like it was a death sentence. That's when I knew this wasn't about light. It was about control. She needed to be the hero crushing the problem neighbor she'd already slandered for months. I didn't argue. I just closed the door, called the non-emergency line, and waited. 20 minutes later, Deputy Ruiz rolled up slow. Lights off, looking like he'd seen this movie before. Neighbors were leaning on fences now. Phones out, trying not to grin too obviously. Linda straightened like she was the mayor. Officer, he's violating lighting ordinances. This is a quality-of-life crisis. Ruiz stared at my soft glow, then at her window across the street, then at the growing peanut gallery in pajamas. He sighed the deep sigh of a man who's dealt with too many self-appointed sheriffs. Ma'am, porch lights aren't illegal. Banging on someone's door at midnight? That's disorderly conduct. Go home. The power drained out of her like air from a punctured balloon. She sputtered, pointed, then shuffled back across the street muttering about, the board will hear about this. I shut my door and felt it, that quiet click when the line in the sand finally gets drawn. You'd think that would be the end. You'd be adorably naive. By lunch the next day, a crisp official letter was taped to my mailbox. Sable Oaks, HOA letterhead. Embossed seal. The works. Cease use of high-intensity exterior lighting during nighttime hours. Penalty, $250 per day. I read it out loud on my porch while sipping coffee. Loud enough for the dog walkers. Old Mr. Grady from 2 doors down stopped, chuckled, and said, "Next they'll outlaw breathing too loud." I slipped the letter into a folder I labeled Exhibit A in bold black marker. Because if Linda wanted war, I was going to fight with receipts. That night the pounding returned, louder, angrier, like she was using the heel of a shoe this time. I let it go 5 full minutes, savoring the absurdity, then opened up. Linda looked electrified, robes cinched like a straitjacket, eyes bulging. "You were served. You're in violation. Enforcement is authorized." She waved a stack of printouts still warm from her printer. Muttering liens, again like a curse word. A couple neighbors were already filming from their windows. This time I didn't call, someone else did. Deputy Ruiz returned, jaw tighter than before. "Ma'am, we had this conversation last night. You want to spend the night in county." The color left her face so fast you could have used it as a nightlight. She backed off, but the look in her eyes said this wasn't surrender. This was just the intermission. For people like Linda, control isn't a hobby. It's oxygen. 2 afternoons later, my security camera caught the masterpiece. There she was at 2:17 a.m., dragging a rickety ladder across my lawn like a cartoon burglar, robe flapping, propping it against my porch, unscrewing my bulb with the delicate care of a bomb technician, and tucking it into her pocket like stolen treasure. I paused the footage just to laugh, dark, bitter laughter, because the HOA president was literally stealing light bulbs in her pajamas while preaching about standards. I posted the clip anonymously to the neighborhood Facebook group with the caption, "When community standards get personal." Within 10 minutes, the memes exploded. Stadium spotlights labeled Ryan's Porch, the Luxor beam. Circus music overlaid. The street was buzzing. That night, I replaced the bulb and brewed fresh coffee. If she wanted theater, I'd give her an audience. She tried reasserting her throne with more flyers stuffed in every mailbox, pseudo-legal threats about weaponized illumination and moral decay. At midnight, she didn't come alone. She brought 2 board members like reluctant backup dancers. Ted the treasurer in his usual 3 short-sleeve button-ups layered, and Eileen who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. "See," Lindo announced, pointing at my porch like it was a crime scene. "He refuses to comply. This is insubordination." I cross my arms, voice low, "Or it's a light. And this is the 3rd night you've dragged people onto my property at midnight. How do you think the sheriff views that?" Ted cleared his throat nervously. "Linda, maybe she snapped. "You're either with me or against me." And just like that, the mask slipped. It wasn't about bylaws anymore. It was about her narrative. She had to be the savior crushing the guy she'd already painted as the neighborhood villain. Ted and Eileen retreated like they were escaping a live grenade. Linda stood alone on my porch, vibrating with humiliation that was only beginning. Then she escalated from ridiculous to performance art. My phone chimed at 3 a.m., motion alert. There was Linda crouched like a raccoon, taping sheets of black construction paper over my new bulb, sealing every edge like she was gift-wrapping a crime scene, then spraying the whole thing matte black as if photons were her mortal enemy. I didn't interrupt. I just saved the footage, peeled it off at dawn, and labeled it Exhibit B. The neighborhood group was now a meme factory. Someone photoshopped her face onto a Darth Vader helmet with the caption, "The Dark Side of HOA." I sipped coffee and watched the likes roll in. Linda was losing the story she'd spent years writing. 2 nights later came the poetic crescendo. A low rumble rolled down the street like thunder on wheels. Linda, red-faced and triumphant, was dragging a portable generator while her 2 reluctant allies hauled industrial flood lamps, the kind they use at construction sites. She fired it up right on the curb. Our cul-de-sac went nuclear white. My porch, my lawn, my living room lit up like an operating room. Neighbors stumbled out, shielding their eyes. Someone yelled, "Linda, are you trying to summon Batman or just blind the rest of us?" Another shouted, "Careful, you'll fry the grid, and then who's going to pay the fine?" I filmed quietly from inside, because at this point calm was my superpower. 10 minutes later, red and blue lights joined the party. The deputies didn't even ask who called. "Shut it down," one barked over the roar. When the lamps died, the silence felt holy. He handed her the citation: noise violation, disorderly conduct, court date pending. She tried arguing conspiracy. Nobody listened. You could feel the neighborhood tilt on its axis. Folks who used to duck their heads started texting me, "If you need a witness, I'm in." Someone left a box on my porch with an upgraded security floodlight for the backyard. The tide was turning. The HOA board called an emergency meeting. Linda's idea? Of course. The clubhouse smelled like burnt coffee and old grudges. 20 people showed, triple the usual turnout. Linda sat up front, gripping the gavel like a scepter, launching into a monologue about standards, decay, and how certain elements were destroying the soul of Willow Creek. Someone in the back muttered, "Is this still about a porch light?" Laughter rippled like a wave she couldn't stop. She slammed the gavel so hard it bounced. When I stood, I didn't raise my voice. "You've turned us into a circus," I said quietly. "Not because of a light, but because you've trespassed, harassed, and dragged people out of bed for weeks. We have video. The sheriff has reports." I tapped my phone and mirrored every clip onto the big wall behind her. Linda on the ladder stealing the bulb. Linda taping black paper. Linda with the generator lighting up the block like a bad rave. Gasps. Nervous laughter. Eileen buried her face in her hands. Ted stared at the floor like it owed him money. The actual board president, not Linda, though she'd acted like it for years, cleared his throat. Motion for a vote of no confidence. A second came fast. Hands shot up, even the ones that used to tremble when Linda glared. It passed. The gavel fell. Her title was gone. But power is a drug, and addicts don't quit cold turkey. Next came the 8-page letter on fancy law firm stationery accusing me of weaponized illumination and demanding 50 grand. My actual lawyer laughed so hard she almost dropped the phone, then told me to take it seriously. We filed it as Exhibit D. The small claims suit followed a week later. Emotional distress, public humiliation, insomnia caused by excessive photons. Court day arrived and half of Willow Creek showed up in their Sunday jeans. Linda's case was 15 minutes of jumbled bylaws, tears, and wild claims that the sheriff's department had joined a plot against her. The judge asked if the videos were doctored. I slid the binder across. He flipped slowly, eyebrows climbing higher with every frame. "Case dismissed," he said. Gavel crisp. "And defendant is advised to pursue a restraining order." He didn't need to say against whom. The order was granted 3 days later. Deputies served it on her stoop while she stood there in stunned silence. The peace lasted 72 hours. Then my camera woke me just past midnight. There was Linda, dressed in all black for once, hammer in one hand and a mason jar full of nails and screws in the other. She raised it over my truck, hood like a priestess about to sacrifice. I dialed. She froze in the sweep of my headlights, nails scattering when she dropped the jar. Handcuffs clicked. Violation of protective order. Attempted vandalism. Trespass. The car door shut with a satisfying finality. I won't lie, I smiled in the dark. We had real peace after that. Neighbors lingered on sidewalks. Kids rode bikes without looking over their shoulders. The new board, regular people, not throne seekers, rolled back half the nonsense rules. Bird feeders returned. Trash cans stayed out overnight, and the sky didn't fall. Shutters turned every color except the HOA-approved beige. People waved. They actually talked. Then came the block party 2 Saturdays after sentencing. Folding tables. Crockpots. Kids weaving through the crowd. Music thumping off oak trees. I flipped the switch on my porch light. The warm glow spilled across the driveway. The whole street clapped. Half joke, half salute. I sat on the step with my coffee and thought about Linda, not the cartoon villain version, but the tight-fisted woman who guarded her little kingdom because it was the only place she still mattered. She wasn't protecting a neighborhood. She was protecting a story where she was the star. When nobody clapped anymore, she turned the volume up until it broke her. The real crime wasn't the light, It was letting one bitter control freak turn neighbors into subjects. Document everything. Stay calm. And never let the loudest Karen define your community. Because when people finally step into the light together, the darkness doesn't stand a chance.